I'm going to show you a super easy way to make a new dog collar. All you need are these supplies. You'll need a 1-inch buckle, a 1-inch slider, a 1-inch D or O-ring, and some tech webbing, 1 inch as well. Grab your measuring tape and your dog and measure around their neck. Measure how you would like the collar to fit. For Finn here, it was 16 inches. Such a good boy. Now you want to measure out your tech webbing. So for this, I do 1.5 times because we're going to use a lot of it to install the hardware. So for 16 inches, I took half of that, which is 8, and then added it to 16 to get 1.5 times, which is 24 inches. Now we're going to assemble the collar before we sew. Grab your slider and slip one end of the webbing through each, just like that. Then you're going to grab your buckle. Take the side with 2 slots and line it up the same way as the slider. Starting with the first slot, you're going to insert the tech webbing and then pull it out through the other, just like that. And make sure your slider and your buckle are facing the same direction. Now we're going to take the end that we just pulled through the buckle and we're going to also pull it through the slider. So give yourself some slack and stick that tech webbing through the first end and loop it around and out the other. So you'll see it'll look like that as you're doing it. Pull it through the other end of the slider and give yourself some extra. Fold the webbing over, so turn it upside down, and we're going to attach it back to its same line. So the webbing you just pulled through, it's going to get reattached to that because that's going to allow you to adjust the collar. Take the end of the webbing and fold it over once. If it's a polyester web, I would recommend grabbing a lighter and just searing it off so it doesn't fray. Fold it over onto itself and then back onto its original webbing. This is where you're going to clip it because we are going to sew an X here. When you're done, you'll be able to see you can still adjust the webbing. Make sure you can adjust. Try that out before you move forward. Now we're going to grab the other end of the webbing that doesn't have a buckle on it, and we're going to slide that slider on. So we're going to attach the slider as close as we can to part of the buckle because this is where the leash is going to hook onto. So grab your other side of the buckle and from on over top, thread it under. Again, making sure all the buckles are in the same direction. I recommend tightening your collar all the way up so that you're working with a smaller amount. So I'm going to cinch the slider all the way to the front and move the D-ring down. With the D-ring facing up and the buckle facing down, so right sides of the buckle and the D-ring are facing up right now, you're going to grab a pin or a clip and clip in between where the buckle and the D-ring is and then right on the other side. So it'll look like this. We are going to sew on either side of that to hold it in place. Then this last little bit here, we're just going to fold it under onto itself and then back onto the collar and pin that down because we're going to sew an X in this as well. All right, buckle up your collar and make sure everything is facing the right way. You can also retest the size on your dog to make sure it's not too big or not too small. And now we're gonna sew it all into place. We're gonna sew in the same order which we assembled. So unbuckle your collar and starting with that first one we clipped, we are going to sew in an X. This will make the collar structurally sound and make it so your dog doesn't rip it apart. Once you have that sewn into place, we are going to move on to the D-ring. So with your buckle on the other edge of your presser foot, you're just going to sew back and forth a bunch of times. You can also do a zigzag stitch here as well, but this is just going to make sure it stays into place and doesn't rip out. So I recommend going over it a couple times. Repeat this step directly on the other side of the D-ring. So you're going to have it held into place with 2 stitch lines. And like I said, go back and forth, make sure it's super sound. Then we'll move on to sewing the final step, which is that tail of the webbing. So where you flipped it under, just remove the pin, and we're going to do an X here as well. So once you're done, clip all the loose threading, and you have a collar. You can make this with any color webbing, any color buckles you want. It's super easy, super fun, and you'll never run out of collars. If you enjoyed this tutorial, follow me at Lorraine Handmade and see more. Bye!